Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today isn't just another discussion. If you've been with us through this entire journey of the MetaMind material, from those very first concepts of embodiment all the way through the complex architecture of living, today is essentially graduation day.
It really is. We are looking at the definitive finale. We're talking about the infinite return. And honestly, just looking at the absolute stack of notes we have here, this is the moment where everything kind of clicks into place.
Yeah, we have a massive amount of ground to cover because we are synthesizing the entire arc today. We're talking about part 1, which was the body, so chapters 0 through 31. We're talking about part 2, the architecture, chapters I through X. And finally, part 3, mathematics, chapters A through Z.
And the goal here, based on the source text, is very specific. The text describes this transition as moving from learning the map to, well, becoming the territory.
I really love that phrase. It sounds so epic, but let's ground it a bit. What does that actually mean for the person listening right now?
Right. So it's the moment where the scaffolding falls away. You know, when you're building a building, you need all that structure around it. The poles, the tarps, the temporary elevators. That is the map. That's the course, the techniques, the really rigorous practice.
The daily habits you force yourself to do.
Exactly. But eventually, for the building to function as an actual building, the scaffolding has to come down. Today is about what happens when the structure just stands on its own.
So we have a lot to unpack. We're going to look at how you moved from numbness to embodiment, how you shifted from linear growth to cyclical growth, and I'm super excited about this part, we're going to get into the algebra of becoming.
Which sounds incredibly intimidating, but is actually fascinating.
It is. And finally, we will land on chapter Z.
The conclusion, that isn't a conclusion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning. Let's talk about the traveler. That is the term the text uses for you, the listener, going through this process.
Yeah.
Where did we start? Because looking back at chapter 0, the starting point was pretty bleak.
Yeah, we started in a place that the text calls the drought and the flood. And I think this is where you really need to check in with yourself, because these aren't just, poetic terms, they are biological states.
Right, the weather patterns of the nervous system.
Exactly. Let's look at the drought first. The drought is described as numbness, shutdown, that feeling of just, I don't care. It's not peace, it's just flat, gray. It's walking through your life like you're watching it on a screen in another room.
I mean, I think we've all been there. It's that feeling where you know you should be happy or you know you should be sad, but there's just nothing. It's like the emotional signal has just been cut.
Precisely. It's a protective mechanism. When the system is overloaded for too long, it literally just pulls the plug. That is the drought. And the flood is the exact opposite. Overwhelm, dysregulation, way too much signal. It's anxiety, panic, rage. It's when everything feels critical and immediate.
I think so many people relate to that oscillation. You're either feeling nothing or you're feeling everything all at once and it's drowning you. You spend the week in a high-stress flood at work, and then you spend the weekend in a numb drought, scrolling on your phone for 12 hours straight.
That is the exact cycle the text identifies as the unembodied loop. And the initial problem, as the sources point out, is that the traveler was likely analyzing their aliveness rather than inhabiting it.
Oh man, that's a heavy distinction. Analyzing aliveness versus inhabiting it.
It is the difference between reading a menu and eating the meal. You can study nutrition, you can know the chemical composition of an apple, but that is fundamentally different from the actual experience of biting into an apple. And part 1, chapters 0 through 31, was entirely about bridging that gap. It was about the descent into the body.
And this wasn't just, go take a bubble bath, self-care. The sources get into the deep biology of this. They talk about the force, but they're very careful to say this isn't magic.
Right, they say it's physics we haven't mapped yet. And they point to very concrete biological realities, for instance, the enteric nervous system.
The second brain. This is one of those facts that I always forget and then get shocked by all over again.
It's totally wild. The gut. The text highlights that the gut has 500 million neurons. That is more than the spinal cord. It produces 95% of the body's serotonin. But here's the kicker that really changes how we view intuition. 90% of the signals traveling through the vagus nerve are going up. Up from the gut to the brain. Only about 10% go down from the brain to the gut.
So when you have a gut feeling, it's not just a metaphor. It's not your brain projecting an emotion down onto your stomach. Your gut is literally emailing your brain with data it collected before your conscious mind even woke up.
Precisely. The traveler used to dismiss gut feelings as woo or irrational, like, oh, I'm just being silly. But the text frames it as high-speed data processing. Your body picks up microcues, tone of voice, body language, atmospheric pressure, pheromones that your conscious mind totally misses because the conscious mind is just too slow.
So the first part of this journey was just learning to read that data.
Yes. Chapters 11 through 20 were called sensing. Developing the capacity to feel. This is the hardware check. Can you actually feel your feet on the floor? Can you feel the temperature of the air on your skin? It sounds so basic, but for someone stuck in the drought, it's revolutionary.
And then chapters 21 through 31 were embodying.
Right. Sensing is, I feel the data. Embodying is, I integrate that feeling into daily life. It's the difference between feeling calm in a quiet yoga class and maintaining that regulation when your boss is screaming at you.
There's a beautiful analogy in the text about the symphony in resonance. Can we touch on that? Because I think it perfectly explains why we feel so disjointed sometimes.
Absolutely. This is from chapter 22. It describes a body as the rhythm and awareness as the melody.
I really like that. It puts it in musical terms that make total sense.
Think about it. If you just have the rhythm, just the body, the heartbeat, the breath, the digestion, it's mechanical, it's a drum beat with no song. It's alive, sure, but it lacks the spark of consciousness. But if you just have the melody, just the mind, the awareness, the thoughts, it's totally ungrounded. It's floating away. It has no base.
So true embodiment is the track mixing.
Embodiment is when the melody plays on top of the rhythm. They lock in. The awareness sinks into the biology. And the text makes a crucial point that this doesn't happen in a cave somewhere. It happens in the mundane.
That is the critical shift in part 1. I think a lot of us wait for the sacred moment to practice being alive.
Yeah.
We wait for the vacation or the retreat or the quiet Sunday morning.
But the text argues that transformation isn't what happens during your 20-minute meditation. It's how you eat your sandwich. It's how you walk to the train. It's how you tie your shoes. The text describes an embodied resonance where the mundane becomes sacred, not because you lit a candle, but because of the quality of attention you brought to it.
The quality of attention, that really seems to be the currency of this whole system.
It is. Attention is the only resource you actually have. And that leads us to the concept of the field. The text says that the space between people isn't empty. It's a field that is continuously generated and shaped by presence.
This sounds a little esoteric, but we have all felt it. You walk into a room where two people just had a fight. They aren't talking, but the air feels
Thick.
yes, thick, heavy.
Exactly. That is the field. It's palpable. When you are embodied, you aren't just feeling yourself, you are changing the resonance of the room you walk into. You become a tuning fork. If you are regulated, grounded, and present, you actually help regulate the nervous systems of the people around you without saying a single word.
So part 1 was about building that capacity, putting up the scaffolding so you could learn to feel again without drowning in the flood or drying out in the drought, reclaiming the vessel.
Correct. But then, something extremely interesting happens in the structure of the course. We hit the end of chapter 31, and suddenly the numbering completely changes.
Yes. We go from Arabic numerals 1, 2, 3 to Roman numerals I, 2, 3, Y the switch. Is it just an aesthetic choice?
No, it's deeply structural. The text explains this as the shift from linear progression to cyclical spirals.
Okay, let's really unpack that.
Yeah.
Because we are trained to love linear progress. We want to level up, we want to check the box, we want to be totally done.
And that is exactly the trap. When you are learning the basics, the scaffolding, it's linear. Step 1, step 2, step 3. You are climbing a ladder. You learn to breathe, then you learn to scan, then you learn to ground. But once you know how to be embodied, you don't just keep climbing a ladder forever, you start living. And life is cyclical.
Seasons, days, breath, it's all cycles.
Exactly. You don't finish summer and say, great, I won summer, I never have to do summer again. Summer comes back. But hopefully the next time it comes back, you experience it differently. The Roman numeral chapters, part 2, are about living the architecture. You don't finish these chapters, you return to them, you spiral through them.
This is where we get into the operating system of the architecture. The text introduces the 40P system. This really feels like the core toolkit for the traveler. It's the software that runs on the hardware we built in part 1.
It is. The 40P stands for target, truth, totally, and title. And these 4 points are designed to be a compass you can check at any given moment.
Let's break those down. Target seems pretty obvious. Where are you aiming?
It sounds obvious, but the text makes a vital distinction between a goal and a target. A goal is a fixed point, like, I want to make $1 million. A target is about orientation. It's about where you are pointing your life right now.
So if the wind changes, you adjust your aim.
Exactly. A goal is rigid. A target is dynamic. It keeps you moving in the right direction, even if the terrain completely changes.
And truth. This felt like the deepest one to me.
This is my favorite one. Truth in this system isn't just telling the truth to others. It is the invisible code your life runs on. It's the story you believe about reality.
Can you give an example from the source?
Mm-hmm.
Because truth is a very big word.
Sure. The text gives the example of shifting from the truth of, I must be perfect to be accepted, to the truth of, I am acceptable as I am.
That is a massive code rewrite.
It changes everything. Think about it like computer code. If your underlying truth, your operating code is I am unsafe, then no amount of positive thinking or strategy will fix the output. Your system will always compile defense mechanisms. You have to debug the code at the root.
So checking your truth means stopping and asking, what belief is driving my behavior right now?
Exactly. Why am I yelling? Oh, because my truth right now is that I'm being disrespected. You have to catch the truth to change the behavior.
Oh, yeah, totally.
This refers to the level of commitment. The text asks, are you all in or are you performing commitment?
Ooh, performing commitment. That stings a little. That feels like buying the gym membership and posting a photo of the card, but never actually going.
It's the difference between doing the work because you want the outcome and doing the work because you want to look like the kind of person who does the work. Totally asks for total integration, no hedging.
And finally, title. This connects to one of the most interesting concepts in part 2, nounships.
Yes, nounships versus rigid identity. This is a crucial linguistic shift.
The text says instead of saying I am anxious, which makes anxiety your identity, you say I am experiencing anxiety mode.
Right. Title in the 40P system isn't a job title. It's the role you're stepping into for a specific context. A nounship is a mode you enter and exit.
Like a suit you put on.
Exactly. You enter teacher mode. You enter parent mode. You enter rest mode. The problem arises when we get trapped in a mode and think it's who we are. If you think you are the anxious one, you can't take the suit off. You sleep in the suit. You shower in the suit.
And that inevitably leads to burnout. This flexibility, being able to take the suit off, seems essential for what the text calls the crisis resilience protocol.
That's the ultimate test of the architecture. The text asks, what happens when life breaks you open? Because the premise of this course isn't that if you do this work, nothing bad will ever happen to you.
Right. Life happens.
Life happens. And the difference between the old way and the MetaMind way is how you view slipbacks.
In the old model, a slip-up was a failure. I broke my diet. I'm a failure. I yelled at my kids. I'm a bad parent. It's a moral judgment.
And moral judgments usually lead to shame spirals, which lead to more bad behavior. In the new architecture, a slipback is just data. The text uses the analogy of a software update.
I love this analogy. It takes all the emotion out of it.
If you release a software update and there's a bug, you don't throw the computer in the trash. You don't say, this computer is evil. You say, oh, there's a bug in the code. Let me patch it.
So if you fall back into an old habit, it's not a moral failing. It's a beta test, revealing that your new code wasn't quite ready for high-stress conditions yet.
Exactly. It recontextualizes setbacks as beta tests. Oh, I thought I had resolved my anger, but when I haven't slept for 24 hours, the old code still runs. Interesting. I need to patch the system for low sleep conditions.
That is so much more compassionate.
And effective. It removes the shame spiral. Shame creates lag. Debugging creates progress.
The goal of part 2, then, is what the text calls unconscious competence.
Yes. The architecture stops being something you do checking your 40P every 5 minutes and becomes something you are. It becomes your baseline reflex. You don't have to think about balancing on a bicycle once you know how to ride. You just ride.
So we've embodied the signals in part 1. We've built a resilient cyclical architecture for living in part 2. And then we go to math class.
Part 3, mathematics, chapters A through Z.
I have to admit, when I first saw mathematics, I thought, oh no, algebra. I was honestly tempted to skip it. But the text calls it the algebra of becoming.
It's a brilliant reframing. It isn't about calculating numbers for the sake of numbers. It's about seeing relationships. It gives names to the invisible structures the traveler has been building. It's symbolic logic for the soul.
It starts with this hierarchy: root, branch, leaf, fruit.
This is a fractal architecture that explains why so many self-help attempts completely fail. The root is your core way of being, your fundamental frequency, your truth. The branches are the major domains of your life: power, presence, purpose, proclivity. The leaves are specific strategies. And the fruit is the tangible outcome.
The text makes a big point that most people try to tape fruit onto a dead tree.
Right. I want the fruit of a fit body, so I try to force the fruit. I buy the gym membership, which is a leaf. But if the root, the fundamental relationship with the body, is rotten, or if the branch of the daily rhythm is broken, the fruit won't grow. Mathematics teaches you to trace the fruit back to the root.
It forces you to look at the cause, not just the symptom.
Exactly. But the real game changer in part 3, the concept that I think genuinely changes how you experience time itself, is the quarter second.
The microarchitecture of experience. I'm so excited to talk about this part.
It is fascinating.
The text says a moment isn't indivisible. It's a 0.25-second frame of reality.
This is based on how the brain processes sensory information. We construct reality in these tiny frames, roughly 4 times a second. We think we see a continuous movie, but we're actually seeing a series of snapshots that the brain stitches together.
So if we are zoning out, we are literally missing frames of our own life.
Yes. The text argues that if you can learn to saturate the quarter second with presence, you change the texture of your entire life.
Saturating the quarter second. That sounds intense. Does that mean you have to be hyper-vigilant every split second?
No, it means being fully in the frame you are in. It's about density. Most of us live thin lives. In any given quarter second, we are 20% here, 40% worrying about tomorrow, and 40% replaying yesterday. The frame is unsaturated.
So the image is blurry.
The image is blurry and ghosted. Saturating the quarter second means bringing 100% of your awareness into the 0.25 frame. You feel the chair, you hear the hum of the air conditioner, you see the light. You are fully rendering reality.
And this scales up.
It scales up inevitably. If you saturate the quarter second, you change the second. If you change the second, you change the minute, then the day, then the life arc. It's about density of experience. A thick life feels longer and richer, even if it's the exact same number of years.
So instead of trying to manage time, which is an external resource, you are managing attention density.
Exactly. And to help us do that, the text introduces pseudo-algebraic mapping. It gives us these symbols, A divided by B combined with C divided by D.
Okay, walk us through this. This is where the algebra really kicks in. What does the slash mean?
The division symbol, the slash, means filtered by or shaped by. So if you have intention divided by fear, it means your intention is being filtered through fear.
And the result is a distorted outcome.
Right. Think about it. If I have the intention to compliment you, but it's filtered through insecurity, the output might come across as weirdly aggressive or needy. But if I have intention filtered through clarity, you get a clean outcome. The algebra allows you to map exactly where the bottleneck is.
So it helps you diagnose why your inputs aren't matching your outputs.
Exactly. You look at the equation and say, oh, my denominator is off. I'm dividing everything by fear.
And the operator symbol, the plus inside the circle.
That represents synthesis. It's not just addition. It's not just mixing blue and yellow paint to get green paint. It's combining hydrogen and oxygen to get water. It creates something qualitatively new.
So the formula is showing us how to combine elements of our life, our effort, our time, our resistance to create actual transformation.
Yes. And the text strongly warns us, don't map for the sake of mapping. The point isn't to draw cool charts. The point is to see where your life is leaking.
Could you give an example of a leak from the text?
A common one is high capacity multiplied by low visibility. This is the classic unsung hero burnout equation.
Explain that one.
You're doing incredible work. That's your high capacity. You are skilled. You are fast. But no one sees it. That's low visibility. Maybe you don't speak up in meetings or you work in a back office. The result of that multiplication is frustration.
And usually the person thinks, I just need to work harder.
Exactly. They try to increase capacity. But if visibility is near zero, increasing capacity just increases the frustration. The math makes it obvious. You don't need to work harder. You need to solve for visibility. You need to change the variable that is dragging the equation down.
It's totally diagnostic. It removes the guesswork from your life choices.
It is the code beneath consciousness.
So you work through these variables, you learn the operators, you map your life. We've gone from the gut to the habits to the math, and we finally reached the end of the alphabet. Chapter Z.
The infinite return.
This is the climax of the entire course. The traveler reaches Chapter Z expecting what? A certificate. A finish line that says you made it.
And instead, they find a spiral staircase.
The text says there is no end.
This is the profound twist. When you finish Z, you are standing at A again. But, and this is crucial, you're standing at A at a higher altitude?
The spiral staircase analogy. You're looking down at the exact spot where you started. You're back at the gateway, which was Chapter A, but you are a completely different person.
The text says, you reread Chapter A, and it means something completely different now because you are different. The words haven't changed. The reader has. When you read about embodiment in Chapter A, it was a concept. Now it's a lived reality.
This leads to a really intense discussion about responsibility. The responsibility of knowing.
This is a heavy concept. The text gives us another equation. Responsibility equals knowledge, multiplied by capacity, divided by ego.
Let's unpack that.
It's a formula for ethical action. Knowledge is what you know, the map. Capacity is what you can do, the skills. So if you know a lot and can do a lot, your responsibility is very high. But it's divided by ego.
So if ego gets in the way,
If your ego is high, if you are self-absorbed, defensive, or arrogant, your ability to respond responsibly is vastly diminished. Even if you are a genius with high knowledge, if your ego is massive, your effective responsibility is extremely low.
the text says, once you see the architecture, you cannot unsee it.
You can't pretend you don't know how the system works anymore. You see someone spinning in a loop, a friend, a partner, and you know exactly why. You see the identity handler running the show. You see the truth that is completely misaligned.
And that creates a duty not to hoard the wisdom.
Which brings us to the 3 gifts of the teacher. Because at Chapter Z, the traveler becomes the teacher.
What are the 3 gifts? Because the text is very clear that we aren't supposed to become preachy gurus telling everyone how to live.
No, absolutely not. The first gift is the map. You offer the framework, but you don't offer it as dogma. You offer it as orientation. Here is a map that helped me. Maybe it will help you. You hold it lightly.
And the second.
The presence. This is the most important one. You offer yourself as proof. The text says offering yourself as proof that integration is possible.
You don't have to be perfect.
No, you just have to be embodied. You have to be the tuning fork. If you are calm in a crisis, people will naturally gravitate toward your frequency. Your very presence proves the work works.
And the third gift.
The permission. Giving others permission to fail, to try, and to find their own way.
That's beautiful. It's not do it my way. It's you have permission to build your own architecture.
And that leads to the paradox of mastery mentioned in the text. True mastery is realizing you are not the destination. You are the bridge for others. You are the scaffolding for someone else until they can stand on their own.
You know, there's a section in the outro of the source text, a letter to the one who has walked this far. It really struck me. It's a very intimate moment in what is otherwise a very technical text.
It's the emotional core of the finale.
It says, you are not the same person who started Chapter 0.
It acknowledges the journey. The traveler has moved from the drought and the flood, through the scaffolding of Part 1 into the cyclical living of Part 2, mastered the algebra of Part 3, and now stands at the threshold of the infinite return.
The architecture is alive, and so are you.
That is the key. The architecture isn't a cage. It isn't a set of rigid rules to constrain you. It's a living system that grows with you. As you expand, the architecture expands.
So what is the final call to action for the listener?
Do not stop. Return to A.
Return to A.
Start the spiral again. But pick a new domain. If you use this first spiral to master your health, great. Now apply the architecture to your creativity, or your relationships, or your finances.
Because the principles are universal.
The 40p works for money just as well as it works for meditation. The quarter second exists in a stressful business meeting just as much as it exists on a peaceful yoga mat.
So you take the engine you build and you put it in a new car.
Exactly. And you realize that the map has become the territory. You don't need to look at the manual anymore because the manual is written in your nervous system.
That is a place to land. It's true sovereignty.
It is.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought that isn't explicitly in the text, but feels like where this is all naturally pointing. We spent all this time talking about the internal work, the body, the mind, the architecture. But imagine a world where 2 people who have done this work actually meet. 2 people who are saturating their quarter seconds. 2 people who are running clean truth code. 2 people who deeply understand the field between them.
That would be the beginning of a completely new kind of civilization, wouldn't it? If the field between 2 people creates a resonance, imagine the resonance of an entire community of travelers.
That's the next spiral.
That is the next spiral.
Thank you for walking this path with us. It's been an incredible deep dive into the source material.
Welcome to the infinite return.
See you on the next loop.